March 6, 1909. In a tense operation, U.S. federal agents had just intercepted a shipment of several barrels of Coca-Cola syrup in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The barrels, which appeared to be innocent enough, were revealed to contain large quantities of an ingredient that wasn't just sugar water. It was caffeine. At the time, caffeine was considered a potentially dangerous stimulant, and the government, worried about its addictive properties, wanted to investigate the true extent of what Coca-Cola was doing. And fast forward to today, and caffeine is everywhere. It's the fuel behind your morning ritual, the reason behind those mid-afternoon slumps, and an unshakable presence in the world's top-selling beverages. In fact, the global caffeine market is worth an estimated $200 billion, with coffee alone generating over $100 billion annually. But the rise of caffeine has come with its own set of consequences. What started as a humble, energizing drink has morphed into a multi-billion-dollar industry that spans from your local cafe to corporate giants like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and the energy drink titans. With over 2.25 billion cups of coffee consumed worldwide every day, we're living in a caffeine-dependent world, and few of us stop to ask, at what cost? Caffeine is naturally found in over 60 plants. These plants evolved caffeine as a defense mechanism. It's toxic to insects and acts as a natural pesticide. Among the most famous sources are the seeds of the coffee plant, tea leaves, cola nuts, and the cacao bean. But coffee stands out not just for its high caffeine content, but for its cultural and economic significance. The chemical itself is a central nervous system stimulant, and when consumed, it blocks adenosine receptors in the brain, effectively preventing the sensation of fatigue. Instead, it boosts the release of dopamine and adrenaline, which in turn heightens alertness, focus, and even mood. While caffeine has been part of the plant kingdom for millennia, the story of coffee itself starts in Ethiopia, around the 9th century. Legend tells of a young goat herder named Kaldi who noticed his flock becoming unusually energetic after eating the red berries from a certain tree. Curious, Kaldi sampled the berries himself and found that they had a stimulating effect. He shared his discovery with a local monk, who began using the berries to stay awake during long hours of prayer. Word spread, and soon the benefits of this magic fruit were known far and wide. Coffee eventually made its way from Ethiopia into the Arabian Peninsula, where it was cultivated in Yemen and refined into a more drinkable form. By the 15th century, the first evidence of coffee drinking was found in Arabia, where it was enjoyed as a beverage in the Sufi monasteries of Yemen. It wasn't just a casual indulgence. Coffee became a crucial part of spiritual and social life, with coffee houses called kava-khane springing up throughout the Arab world. These became places for conversation, intellectual exchange, and social gatherings. By the 17th century, coffee had spread to Europe, where it was initially met with suspicion.
Wait a minute.
In fact, Pope Clement VIII was so intrigued by coffee that he ordered it to be tested in 1600, unsure whether it was a heathen drink. After tasting it, the Pope famously declared that it was so delicious it should be baptized. This endorsement allowed coffee to thrive, and the first coffee house opened in Venice in 1645. From there, coffee spread quickly across Europe, with London opening its first coffee house in 1652 and Paris following soon after in 1671. As it became more widely consumed, coffee transitioned from a luxury good to a more common beverage, becoming deeply embedded in daily life. Coffee houses in Europe were not only places to drink coffee, but also served as centers of commerce, political discourse, and intellectual discussion. This cultural transformation made coffee an essential part of European society by the 18th century. As demand for coffee grew, so did its importance in the global economy. European powers, recognizing the economic potential of coffee, began establishing coffee plantations in colonies around the world. The Dutch began growing coffee in their Southeast Asian colonies in the early 1600s, while the French, Spanish, and Portuguese established coffee farms in the Caribbean, Central, and South America. Coffee became a cornerstone of the transatlantic slave trade, with enslaved Africans working on the vast plantations that supplied the world with coffee. By the 19th century, coffee had become a major commodity, with countries like Brazil, which still remains the largest producer of coffee, dominating the global market. The coffee trade was officially established as an industry, and coffee began to fuel the Industrial Revolution, with workers relying on its stimulating effects to power through long hours of labor. King Charles II of England tried to shut down coffee houses in 1675, fearing they were breeding grounds for political dissent. Frederick the Great of Prussia also attempted to discourage coffee consumption in 1777, promoting beer as the preferred national beverage. These bans didn't last, and coffee ultimately bounced back stronger, becoming a staple in European and American society. The 19th century saw the rise of coffee as a mass-market product, with the introduction of instant coffee in the late 1800s and the creation of the first commercial coffee roasters. But it wasn't until the mid-20th century, with the explosion of coffee chains like Starbucks in the 1990s, that coffee truly became the global cultural icon we know today. Coffee houses no longer just served as places for intellectual exchange. They became places for the masses to connect, relax, and enjoy their daily caffeine fix. In fact, by the end of the 20th century, coffee had achieved near-universal consumption, with millions of people around the world incorporating it into their daily routines. Today, coffee is a multi-billion-dollar industry. But coffee isn't the only product powered by caffeine. Energy drinks, sodas, and even certain snacks have all harnessed caffeine's energizing effects, creating a booming industry that spans from your local cafe to corporate giants. Companies like Nestle, PepsiCo, and Red Bull have capitalized on the caffeine craze, turning it into a global commodity. While coffee remains at the center of this industry, other caffeinated beverages like sodas and energy drinks have exploded in popularity. As coffee gained momentum across the world, another product was quietly carving its path to become one of the most iconic beverages on the planet. Born in 1886, Coca-Cola was originally created by John Stith Pemberton, a pharmacist in Atlanta, Georgia, as a medicinal tonic to treat headaches and fatigue. Originally sold in small doses at soda fountains, the drink contained coca leaf extract, from which cocaine was later removed, and cola nuts, both of which were sources of caffeine. It was marketed as a nerve tonic and a cure for various ailments, with the caffeine acting as the key stimulant. By the early 20th century, Coca-Cola was transitioning from a medicinal beverage to a mainstream soft drink. It was around this time that Coca-Cola's connection with caffeine would make headlines that would shape the future of the entire caffeine industry. On March 6, 1909, Coca-Cola found itself at the center of a controversy that would alter the course of caffeine's role in popular drinks. Federal authorities intercepted a shipment of Coca-Cola syrup in Chattanooga, Tennessee, suspecting it contained unusually high levels of caffeine. In those days, caffeine was still a controversial stimulant, and authorities worried it could pose public health risks. The government seized the barrels, sparking a court case that would test the very legitimacy of caffeine in sodas and other beverages. In court, Coca-Cola fought back, arguing that the caffeine in their product was not harmful and that it contributed to the drink's stimulating and refreshing qualities. They hired a young psychologist, gave him a lot of money, and had him carry out multiple experiments within the time span of a few weeks. Results came in. His conclusion in court: caffeine is harmless. Even better, caffeine has a physical and mental performance-enhancing effect. With this, Coca-Cola had won the case, effectively proving that caffeine, when used in moderation, was not only harmless but beneficial for staying alert and energized. This victory helped solidify caffeine as a central ingredient in the growing soft drink market, and other brands soon followed Coca-Cola's lead in adding caffeine to their beverages. Fast forward over 100 years, and Coca-Cola's success in proving caffeine's safety laid the groundwork for the explosion of caffeine-laden drinks we consume today. From energy drinks like Red Bull to sodas like Mountain Dew, and even ready-to-drink coffees, caffeine became a marketing tool, a selling point that promised energy, focus, and alertness.
Monster Energy! Put it in your body and ask questions later.
These drinks became ubiquitous, with consumers across the globe relying on caffeine to fuel their daily routines. But now, more than a century after that court case, it seems caffeine was falsely advertised. Caffeine is everywhere, powering up our mornings, fueling long nights, and even sneaking into places we least expect, like yogurt and soft drinks. But what if I told you that the very substance we rely on could be doing more harm than we realize? Over the years, scientists have uncovered a darker side to caffeine that many people ignore, and it's time we take a deeper look. Let's start with something we all know: soft drinks and energy drinks. The caffeine levels in these drinks vary wildly and not always in ways we expect. For example, a can of Coca-Cola contains about 34 milligrams of caffeine, while a Pepsi has about 38 milligrams. In comparison, an energy drink like Red Bull can pack anywhere from 80 milligrams to 160 milligrams per can, with some brands going even higher. These drinks are marketed to give you an energy boost, but many people don't realize how much caffeine they're really consuming and the potential consequences. When it comes to the body's tolerance, the average person can handle up to 400 milligrams of caffeine a day without serious side effects. That's about 4 cups of coffee. However, tolerance to caffeine varies based on genetics. Some people metabolize caffeine quickly, while others, like slow metabolizers, can feel the effects of caffeine for hours after consumption. A study from the Harvard School of Public Health showed that about 40% of people are slow metabolizers, and for them, caffeine can stay in the system much longer, raising the risk of side effects like insomnia, nervousness, and even heart palpitations. In one experiment conducted in 2009, scientists wanted to see how people would react to caffeine without knowing they were drinking it. They gave test subjects 2 soft drinks, one caffeinated, the other not, and asked them to choose which one they preferred. Despite not being told which one contained caffeine, the majority of participants chose the caffeinated drink. Why? The effect was subtle, but their bodies knew what they wanted. The caffeine hit gave them an extra buzz, even though they didn't consciously recognize the difference. This shows how ingrained caffeine is in our behavior. It's not just about taste, it's about habit and the need for stimulation. In the same vein, a 2011 study showed that when people were given caffeinated yogurt and non-caffeinated yogurt, most chose the caffeinated option. Their reason? The same. A preference for the boost, even if they didn't consciously know it was caffeine driving that decision. When it comes to addiction, caffeine is a drug, and some experts say it can be just as addictive as nicotine. Dr. Roland Griffiths, a researcher at Johns Hopkins University, explains that caffeine addiction is real.
World are dependent on is caffeine, but it's the world's most widely used mood-altering drug, and it turns out that it does produce physical and psychological dependence.
His studies have shown that regular caffeine consumption can cause the brain to adapt to its effects, which is why you may find yourself needing more to achieve the same result. The withdrawal symptoms, headaches, fatigue, irritability, are similar to those of other addictive substances. If you miss your morning cup of coffee, you might feel that all too familiar headache creeping in. When you compare a typical energy drink like Red Bull to a classic soft drink like Coca-Cola, the difference in caffeine content is striking. A single Red Bull can have anywhere from 80 to 160 milligrams of caffeine, while Coca-Cola has just 34 milligrams. That means an energy drink has nearly 5 times more caffeine than a can of soda. Despite this, both are marketed to give you an energy boost, but the speed at which they hit your system and the intensity of the effects are dramatically different. Energy drinks are designed to deliver that punch quickly, often with added sugar and other stimulants, whereas sodas like Coca-Cola give a much slower, milder lift. But don't be fooled by the caffeine disparity. Coca-Cola and other soft drink giants spend millions of dollars on marketing to make us feel like we're getting a harmless pick-me-up. However, these companies often lobby against regulations that could limit caffeine content in their products, because caffeine is the secret sauce. It keeps you coming back for more, driving sales. A 2019 report from the Center for Science in the Public Interest showed that soft drink companies actively fight labeling requirements for caffeine content, making it harder for consumers to understand exactly what they're drinking. Caffeine has its place, offering a useful boost for focus and energy, and even providing some health benefits when consumed in moderation. But the downside is real. Overuse can lead to anxiety, sleep issues, and dependence. It's easy to get hooked, especially with so many caffeinated drinks available, from coffee to energy drinks and sodas. The problem is that caffeine becomes a crutch, something we rely on more and more until it starts controlling our day. That said, there are alternatives. Non-caffeinated versions of drinks like Coca-Cola and Pepsi exist for those who want to avoid caffeine but still enjoy a refreshing soda. These options allow you to indulge without the jittery side effects or sleep disruption caffeine often brings.
Yuck. Yuck. Ooh, it's terrible but wonderful at the same time. It's like freedom in a cup! Ding, dang, out of hand!